Hi there folks, welcome back to Rich Reviews, and I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. And as always, during around this time of the year, I found myself thinking I would like to put out my worst of the year list to get ahead on things. And let me confess folks that over the years my tastes have changed, and let me confess also that sometimes I may not want to see a film because I know a film may be bad, or sometimes a film that might appeal to a lot of people but didn't necessarily appeal to me. Now, when I first started doing the worst of the year list, one of the first things I did was to do a category list. And I remember doing that list, and that was actually quite a fun list. Maybe next year I'll go back to doing that if I conjure up enough worst films of the year. So what I'm going to do for this year's list, and let me confess, with the dishonorable mention, there's always a multitude of ways I'm doing this now. To turn a page from Animaniacs, remember that great animated show back in the 90s, they haven't to bring back. My dishonorable mention here now are good idea, bad idea. Remember that thing, folks? So the first good idea, but that turned out to be a bad idea instead, was Zola. Here's an idea. Let's make a film about someone else's Twitter feed. And here's the thing, folks. I would love to see a film based on someone else's Twitter feed. But alas, what we have here is a story about sex trafficking, and they make it into a comedy. Granted, you could probably do that if it has the balls to do it. And here's the thing. I, like many people, love Riley Keough. Riley Keough, hey, look, you could be Elvis's granddaughter and you could still be attractive and you give a balls-to-the-wall performance that can make or break a film. But alas, even she can't save this film, even though I do admire her performance. The second good idea, bad idea, happens to be Safer at Home. Now, if you were to watch Safer at Home earlier on this year, the pandemic was still raging. Now it's subsided more or less. A found footage film set at a time where the pandemic is still raging? Okay, that certainly could be possibly be an interesting idea. Well, you just stuck it with a cast of no names doing something not interesting. And it ends really just sort of like, well, I could have foreseen that in a couple different ways. The last of the good idea, bad idea, and it pains me to have to put this on here, but it's Spiral from the Book of Saw. And here's the thing. When Dave McBride co-wrote the screenplay for Halloween, every comedian out there said to themselves, okay, let me try to do my best to write a horror film and have comedic moments in it. But here's the thing, folks. Unlike Halloween, there was no Danny McBride character. We knew the Danny McBride moments. Spiral happens to have Chris Rock, and he brings along plenty of Chris Rockisms. And here's the thing, folks. Look, I love the Saw franchise. I hope to see another Saw movie at some point. But if they want to keep doing one-offs, that's perfectly fine with me. But just don't have it be this boring. Let's go now with my bottom 10 of the year. Some of these, yes, are VOD crap bowl special. Number 10 on this list happens to be, yes, my number 10 here is The Lost Daughter. Now, at every film festival, there's always that one obvious dud. And to me, this is an obvious dud. It's The Lost Daughter. Really, what is there to say? Now, again, everyone is like going to be praising the directorial debut of Maggie Gyllenhaal, praising the performance of Olivia Colman. I just sat there thinking, okay, Olivia Colman is trying to do a vacation version of Fatal Attraction. She's a lot in herself in Dakota Johnson. And hey, look, Dakota Johnson's a very beautiful girl. But I just sat there thinking, okay, so what? You were a shitty mother and you made up for it over the years. And oh yeah, the flashbacks involving Jessie Buckley are actually quite interesting. I wish I could have seen that film. I know last year I'm seeing a film in which Olivia Colman basically gets a free vacation to Greece for a couple of months. My number 9 on this list happens to be, yes, my number 9 here happens to be There's Someone Inside Your House. This is based on a novel, and after watching the film, I immediately looked up the premise for this novel on Wikipedia and I thought to myself, wow, what we have here though is 3 distinct ideas fighting for space here. One of whom happens to be a meta take on Scream, another take on cancel culture, and a redemption tale, and it fails miserably at all 3. And I just sort of sat there gobsmacked at anyone thinking that this could be interesting. And trust me, folks, it could be interesting. It just happens to have actors that I don't particularly care for and a director that I don't think really works at it. And again, I think a couple of producers here are thinking to yourself, okay, I'm attaching myself in this and I'll get my check here and then I could leave and let the director do his thing. My number 8 on this list here is, yes, my number 8 on this list here happens to be Vanquish. Don't remember Vanquish? Well, thankfully, I vanquished this from my memory bank, quite honestly. And lately, there have been a whole bunch of high caliber actors stringing themselves along in B grade material. So then this basically means, oh yes, Morgan Freeman needing to pay bills, and Morgan Freeman's a great actor who will be great in the future and has always been great. But he's stuck in a script with Ruby Rose, and obviously that house looks beautiful, and Ruby Rose can kick ass all she likes, and it sucks to know that she left Batman. Number 7 on this list here happens to be, yes, my number 7 on this list is Assault at VA 33, in which Sean Patrick Flannery decides, oh yeah, let me do a 99-cent version of Die Hard at a VA hospital. I wish I could forget this from my memory banks. Does anyone really remember Assault on VA 33? If they do remember Assault on VA 33, I'm just like, congratulations, you sat through this miserable picture. Rob Van Dam, who I remember when I was a wrestling fan, was just like, at least he's seen better days. And basically, he's doing all his lines in a truck. My number 6 here on this list. Number 6 on this list, and it pains me to say, is Voyagers. I saw this early on in the year. And let me say this, folks. I think Lionsgate is a really great studio. I think during the pandemic, Lionsgate found themselves with a whole bunch of tax write-offs. And here's the thing, I happen to like Limitless, but Neil Burger hasn't been impressive since. He made the first Divergent film. Basically, in space, no one can hear you scream. And in space, I never thought I could yawn that hard. And basically, he tried to think to himself, okay, let's make a Lord of the Flies in space. I'd be all for a Lord of the Flies in space with Ty Sheridan, Johnny Depp's daughter, and Colin Farrell, and a whole bunch of no-name actors. But alas, why would this film being told? I have no clue. It's forgettable. It wants to be a horror film at the same time, and there's no horror to it at all. Now, my number 5 here is... My number 5 is The Resort, and if you're thinking to yourself, where's the review of The Resort? Well, I didn't bother to review The Resort because this is one of those 70-minute horror films that gets released VOD by a director who's thinking to himself, hooray, I'm finally making a film. And basically the actors are like, hooray, I'm getting a free weekend at a resort in Hawaii. And let's make it a horror film, but there are no scares here. The scares are predictable. And therefore, as a 70-minute horror film, felt so long, felt so tedious, and basically nothing happens from the first 45-50 minutes that you're thinking to yourself, is this all the writer wanted to say? They're saying nothing worthy of note. My number 4 here is... Yes, my number 4 is another 70-minute film called Alice Fades Away, and never before in 70 minutes has fading away felt so painful. Like, oh yeah, this one woman accidentally killed her husband, ran away, and given the fact that any student project could have a high-profile actor, we got William Sadler. Which, hey look, I like William Sadler a lot, but what's he doing here? Who had compromising photos of him to want to do this? And this once again contains a magical forest where everyone can appear magically at any one particular time. The people that die here die in the most laughable of ways that I can think to myself, oh yeah, that's particularly laughable. Number 3 here happens to be... My number 3 here happens to be Apex. And unlike another Bruce Willis film that we'll get to in a minute, the reason why Apex appears so bombed down on this list, basically Neil McDonough gives some of the most Neil McDonoughisms that you've ever seen, and it's just sort of like, oh yeah, the only a screenwriter who's high on his own supply or thinks to themselves, oh yeah, this might be a very fascinating line to say, let's have some character actors say this, and let it be fascinating. A really kooky thing for Neil McDonough to say. And boy, does Bruce Willis look bored. And oh yeah, this apparently, from what I've come to learn, is also a remake of another film from the 90s. I don't think I'll ever be watching that film from the 90s ever again. My number two on this list here happens to be Cosmic Sin, and unlike, say, Apex, which dragged, say, Neil McDonough into this garbage, obviously, Cosmic Sin dragged, Kostas Matador and Frank Grillo into this mix. At least Kostas Matador allows to have a British accent. Frank Grillo just disappears and say, hey, look, I was here the whole time. Isn't that amazing, folks? And the wrestler Lana, don't quit her day job. And this, I think, comes from Christina Lemire saying that Bruce Willis gives a performance that is an insult to telephone booths, because at least with a telephone, you're actually giving a performance. Bruce Willis doesn't give a performance here. He's collecting a paycheck. Now, when it comes to my worst film of the year, to paraphrase Moneyball, there are good films, there are bad films, and then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's another 50 feet of molten lava that likes to be buried underneath the crap, and then there's this particular film. My number one choice for the worst film of the year happens to be Room 9. Now, it would be charitable to call this a film, because it's not. Now, I think the only really odd thing is that they managed to pay the movie voiceover announcer guy, and what he says is just totally like, I can't believe I'm being paid to voiceover narrate a film that looks this cruddy. From Michael Verman from The Hills Have Eyes. I don't think anyone has seen The Hills Have Eyes, the original set, in many, many years. Scout Taylor Compton, look, no one can fault her for the Rob Zombie Halloween films. That's not her fault. And let me just say this, Kane Hodder, I feel sorry for, because they're all trapped in a script here that just is not, this is not a film. This is a student film that has somehow someone thought to themselves, okay, I can distribute this here. Apparently a director here has decided, oh yeah, I'm going to make a sequel. I have no interest in watching that sequel, and God bless to anyone who does, because I know you'll be suckered into watching it. And so, folks, that is my bottom 10 of the year. Tell me your choices for the bottom 10 films of the year. So, folks, like, comment, subscribe, enrich yourself with knowledge. I'll see you next time, folks. I'm at Michael Rich at Richie's2 on Twitter. I'll see you next time, folks. Yes, hooray.